Hello and welcome to episode 273 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden. I'm Kiko and today is May 5th, 2025. And today I'm wearing two older pieces that I haven't worn on the podcast so often, so I thought it was their turn to be shown again. And the stole I'm wearing is crocheted out of a Opal sock yarn with cotton. So this is a mix of wool, nylon and cotton. And when Opal produced this yarn, I was still working at Wolle a German yarn shop. And I remember when we got this yarn in, I immediately wanted to make something with it. And the color reminded me of raspberry and vanilla ice cream. So that's the name of my stole. I called it Raspberry and Vanilla Ice Cream Stole because the colors remind me of ice cream, and with the cotton content, it's more of a summery yarn. It's not so much a winter yarn. And also the bright colors gave them a spring vibe, I thought. So I wanted to make something that I could wear in spring and maybe in summer if it wasn't too warm. And I remember I took a long time to find a pattern that I felt would be good with this with these colors. And then I came upon this crochet pattern, and I think it was supposed to be a tablecloth that you could crochet out of cotton yarn. But I really like this this motif. So these are, what are these, hexagons, I think. So every motif by itself is quite nice, but then when you start adding them together and then these motifs combine and you get these long windy thingies, I think it's so beautiful. I really like it. Maybe I should crochet that again at some point. Yeah, but I found this pattern. I was really happy with it. I started crocheting those motifs. And if I remember correctly, I crocheted them together while I was doing the last round. So it does look crocheted together, but from the color, it doesn't look as if I did it afterwards. But while I crocheted the last round, I would attach it to the motifs that I already had. And then I came up with this stole that has no straight edges, but has these rounded edges at the sides. But I really, really like it. And back then, I just chose the colors because I liked them, and I crocheted the motifs because I liked them, and I never really thought about what to wear it with. And it turns out I don't have a lot of yellow or light pink clothes, but I do have two yellow pieces that I can wear this with. And so today I picked this pale pink top with the black pullover, and black and white are of course colors that I can wear this stole with. So I'm wearing this black pullover that I knit out of a Wolle yarn, and it's a it's in German we call it Bändchen garn. I'm not quite sure what is, there is a word for it in English. I would recognize it if I heard it, but I can't think of it right now. So the yarn isn't round or very thin, but it's more like it almost looks like a very thin strip of fabric, if that makes sense. And with these kind of yarns, what you can do if you work with drop stitches, is that what you call it? Or elongated stitches, it sort of makes the yarn shine more, and it's more visible that you're working with this kind of yarn. So that's what I did with this pullover. If I remember correctly, it was also a pattern in one of Wolle brochures. And the way this was knit is by one round knitting the stitches normal, and then the other round you would always wrap the yarn twice around your needle, and then the next round you would drop those extra wraps. So you have one row of long stitches and then one row of normal stitches. Another possibility to create this pattern is by using two very different needles. So if you use one like 4mm needle and then one 10mm needle, and you knit one round with this and then one round with the other needle, then you also get this pattern of having longer stitches and normal stitches. And this pattern is really very flexible. So I thought it would hang more because this yarn is partly cotton and I think partly nylon or acrylic or something like that. But it's very light, so it tends to be rather short, and then I tend to pull on it to get it longer. And also with the sleeves, they're fairly short, but they are very flexible, so I can pull them to be the proper length, but after a while they will just shrink back. So that's quite interesting. And another interesting fact about this pullover, this is one of the few times that I knit the exact same model twice, because my sister really liked the pullover, so I made it again for her with a few changes that aren't very visible. I think one pullover has the neckline is a bit wider, and I think the first pullover I knit in pieces as per pattern and then seamed it together, and then the second one I knit in the round and without seams. So, but other than that, they are the same. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I have 2 finished objects today, and I only started 1 new one, so I'm happy with myself. But again, I have lots and lots of plans for new projects. Let's see how that works out. Anyway, the first finished object is something that I have worked on for almost 5 years. So I started this green crochet blanket on June 18th, 2020, and I finished it 2 days ago. So I worked on it for almost 5 years, not continually, but every time I went on holiday during those 5 years, I would take some 10-gram mini balls of Opal sock yarn, and I would crochet those little squares. And then after the holiday, I would sit down and start crocheting them together with this neon green yarn. And then so very slowly this blanket was growing, and then now I've decided it's big enough. And this is what it looks like. So it's 7 squares wide, and I think it's 10 squares long. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah. So it's a nice size. It's not huge, but it's a nice size for me to snuggle under. It's almost as long as I am. And you can see it's wider than me, so I can lay under it and cover myself. And as I said, most of the squares were crocheted from 10-gram minis. Some were crocheted from leftover yarn. But then at the end, when I wanted to get it finished, I was running out of 10-gram minis with green in them. So I chose this color. I chose a 100-gram ball of yarn, and then I crocheted 1 big square and I think 5 little ones in that color that I crocheted in towards the end. Yeah, and I'm really, really happy. I haven't weighed it yet. I forgot to do that. So I don't know how much yarn there is in the whole blanket. So it's 7 times 10. So it's 70, theoretically it's 70 small squares. So that would be 700 grams plus the light green, the neon green for connecting all the squares. So yeah, I will weigh it and I will put it on my Ravelry page so that you know how much yarn you would need if you wanted to crochet a blanket like this. Yeah, really happy that it's done. I had been thinking of adding a border around it, but for one, I didn't really feel like crocheting a border. And also I thought if I don't do a border, I can still decide to make it bigger later. So as long as it's just the simple granny square pattern around it, I could always add another row of squares if I wanted, or if I decide in the future that this is the perfect size, I could still sit down and crochet a border around it if I wanted. Yeah, very happy that this blanket is finally finished after 5 years. And yeah, that's really good. The other project is not very old. I started that sometime in March, and I've got to put the date on Ravelry. So maybe I can find the first picture that I took and find out at what time I started them. But these are my March socks for this year's knit-along, sock knit-along in March. I had filmed a tutorial video on how to knit this Estonian spiral pattern and then picked this color from the Opal abo for socks for myself. Or maybe I'll give them to my aunt. Haven't really decided yet. She loves socks with bright colors and interesting patterns. So this is not a very elaborate pattern, but I think she'd be happy with them, and she has my shoe size. So very often I'll knit something for myself and then decide to give them to her. So we'll see. Yeah, I started with 66 stitches and a slightly bigger needle up here. Then I went down to my usual 2.75 millimeter needle. When I finished the spiral pattern, I went down to 60 stitches and then knit a very simple foot with a short row heel and a star toe. Nothing special there. Really happy with how the colors came out completely differently without me having to do anything. It just turned out that way when I started the second sock. So yeah, I think that's all I can say about these. I'm very happy with them. Now on to works in progress. I have picked up another pair of socks that are still on my needles, that are not part of my knit-alongs, and these are the day and night socks. This was the round 1 Sock Madness pattern this year, and this was the first version that I started knitting, but I mixed up the number of repeats we were supposed to do in the leg and in the foot. And I only noticed when I'd almost finished the foot and I didn't want to undo the whole sock. So I started over, finished the other pair to go on to the next round of the Sock Madness. But I still wanted to finish these. So I finished the first one and I started the second one. And the last time I showed it to you, I'd only just started the ribbing, and I finally picked them up again and somehow... yeah, got the yarns confused, but anyway, so I finished the ribbing and I knit, I think, 3 of the pattern repeats, and I think I have to knit another 3 to get the same length as the other sock, and then I start with the increases for the heel. So this has I think it's called a strong heel, where you do increases and then you just do the heel turn and then you're done with the heel. So yeah, I'm still up here, and the colors are almost exactly the same. I think it's a tiny little less of the purple up here, but it looks almost identical. So that's fun too. Yeah, these are not for me, so I don't mind them being the same. Yep, the other socks I'll show you at the end of the video. Now I'll show you the lace wrist warmers that I am knitting at the moment, and I am trying to do a pattern repeat every time I'm in my shop. And because last week I didn't have to knit Sock Madness, I thought I'd be able to do several repeats, but I'd completely forgotten that I was only in my shop one day last week. We had a bank holiday on Thursday, and then my husband and I went away for a long weekend. So Tuesday was the only day I was in my shop last week, but on that Tuesday I actually knit 1 pattern repeat. So last week I showed you this whole finished like a shell pattern or something, or wave or whatever, and now this one is complete because I added those rounds. So this week we'll see, I'll be in my shop for 3 days, but there'll be Sock Madness again. So depending on when the round starts and what the pattern is like, and how long and if I can stay in the competition or not, we'll see how much work I can do on the wrist warmers. Then the next small project with sock yarn are the Japanese mittens that I told you about last week, that I decided to do out of this abo colorway, this subscription yarn, which was chosen for the current pattern battle. And there everybody has to knit with the same colorway but do a different pattern, and I decided to do the Japanese mittens by Bernd Kessler. And I actually finished the first mitten except for the ribbing, and it's in this ribbing that there's a special pattern, so that's what this mittens makes it different from the other mittens in the book. And there's one other thing that's different, is that instead of just casting off the stitches normally, they are cast off with an I-cord, and then the two parts of the hand are knit together and cast off, and that's also done with the I-cord. And I think that gives it a nice finish. I like the look, so maybe I'll add an I-cord to all the Japanese mittens that I knit from now on, no matter whether it's in the pattern or not. I think that my gauge is almost exactly as it's in the book, but they turned out really small. So you can see they are, well, I can get my hand inside, but they're really tight. And but I didn't want to keep them anyway. I don't really need mittens in that color, so I thought I'll knit them the way they're written in the book. Then they will turn out a little smaller, but then I can give them to someone with smaller hands. There are lots of people with smaller hands than me. So yeah, as usual, I'm always surprised how quickly they knit up. So you start with the thumb, you do the increases, and then you cast off those stitches, and then you keep the stitches of the fourth side, and that's where you knit the ribbing. And this is where the interesting pattern comes in, so I'm already looking forward to knitting that. And yeah, fairly quick knit. And I really like the way the colors come out in that project. Now on to some bigger projects, and I'll start with the stole, with the Opal Stole that I test knit for Deb Milstein, and I've added several stripes to it. So these are all the stripes that you already know, and I think last week I think this was the last stripe that I showed you, and I've added 4 more stripes. Still enjoy knitting on this, still enjoy the different colors and the way the colors change. And at the moment I'm using up leftover yarns. So these were socks that I think my sister got. With this yarn, I'm not quite sure what we made. This was another Opal abo yarn, subscription yarn, and I think I also knit fingerless mittens with lots of beads. And this colorway, I remember using it. I'm not quite sure what I made. I think this is the darkest color that I've used so far. I think from the leftover yarn, I didn't realize how much dark gray there was in that ball, but yeah, I still think it's okay. And from now on, there'll be mostly green and blues and turquoise, mostly turquoise probably. And I'm really looking forward to knitting those last 5 stripes. And then once I've done those, I'll have to knit another border exactly like this one. And then I'll be done. The pattern will be published sometime in May, so probably 16th or 17th, something like that. I'll let you know. And as I said, I've already put the code on my Ravelry page, so as soon as the pattern goes live, there'll be a link from my pattern page to the pattern, so you can get it for yourself if you want it. Now to the clothes that I'm knitting. I continue knitting on the Vest Friends vest by Tin Can Knits. This is another pattern battle, so that was the one before the current one. And I have 2 balls of yarn in this color because I was able to swap one. And I'd already finished the upper part of the vest, and I've now finished the first 100-gram ball of yarn, except for those few meters. And so I stopped knitting, and the next thing I'll do is I'll do the ribbing around the armholes, and then I can decide how much longer I want the vest to be, and then I can do the other ribbing for the neckline, and the fronts and everything is done all in one go around all the edges. And then once I've done that, at the moment I'm thinking of adding a little bit of white into the ribbing, and then duplicate stitch a motif onto either one of the fronts or both of the fronts, or maybe on the back somewhere. But I would like to add a little bit of white to the vest just to make it go with my skirt and my pullover a little more. Maybe I'll just do the white around the edges, and maybe white buttons, and maybe a little motif. I don't know. Lots of ideas. We'll see what I actually do. But I was quite happy to get this far with the front and backs. And I'm now looking forward to finishing the armholes. So this looks more finished. And then, yeah, hopefully not taking until the next pattern battle to get this done. And the other garment I knit on last week is the Multitalent pullover by Tin Can Knit, not Tin Can Knits, that was the vest, by Nicolor, a German knitwear designer who has those ingenious patterns where you don't have to swatch. You can just start knitting, and then once this side is this big, you can make it fit your body with any yarn, with any pattern. So that's really great. And as you can see, I finished both the sleeves. So I've done the same pattern on the ribbing as I did in the neckline, and it actually worked out perfectly. Here I did 3 of those pattern repeats with these round thingies, and here I did 6, just the way my sister did, and they are far from being too long. So I was a bit worried I'd end up in my elbow crease, but I'm quite a bit higher than that, so that was no problem. But I actually used 25 grams for one sleeve. So I only have 50 grams left to finish the front and back. So I really have to make sure, I have to find out how much yarn I need for one round, so I can calculate how many rounds I would need to do 9 pattern repeats, and then see if I can add more stockinette rounds before I start the ribbing or not. And if I don't get 9 pattern repeats, it wouldn't be too bad either, so I'm not too worried about that. But I think because this is a bit lacy, the pattern is a bit lacy, I will probably need less yarn for the pattern than if I just did stockinette. So I will try and get the pullover to be as long as possible, because I don't like it too short. Yeah, but I think it should probably be a good length. I'm a very short person, so yeah, should be fine. Really enjoy the colors. They are really nice and spring-like. And this is a Opal sock yarn with nylon and wool and bamboo, not cotton like this one. This was cotton, this is bamboo. But again, it's a bit lighter than everything being wool, so this would be nice for the springtime if it's a bit cooler, but not as cold. Yeah, but it's too warm for summer, so it's definitely a spring or autumn garment. And that brings me to the knit-alongs, and I finished the March knit-along, the socks for March. So now I have April and May on the needle, because we already have May. But the April socks are the Helix stripe socks, and I only added a few rounds, so not a lot. I think last time I showed it to you, I talked about how the light pink met the blue, so it's a bit more stripy than up here. But now I again have the light pink and the white coming together. And I asked the girl I was thinking of if she liked the socks, but she said no, thank you. So I have to find somebody else I want to knit them for. And that's why I'm a bit hesitant in knitting them, because as long as I don't know which size I want to knit, yeah, I don't feel very motivated to knit on them, because I don't want them to be too big for whoever wants them. So I'll ask my sister again, but they're probably a bit too colorful for her, but she does like the colors. We'll see. I hope to find someone to knit them for this week so I can decide what size to make, and then I would really like to finish at least one sock so I can get a move on. Now for May, last week I showed you the granny square socks that I knit in baby size, and I found out why they are different sizes. And I actually used the same number of stitches, but when I checked the first sock to see when I started the toe, I missed the first decrease. So I thought the second decrease was the first decrease. So I did the first decrease, and I think I added 4 more rounds. So the second sock is actually 5 rounds longer than the first sock. and I'm really happy I found the mistake. I didn't fix it. As I said, I probably work it into an advent calendar, and then it's perfectly okay to have them different sizes. But I was just happy to know that I was able to find the mistake. Now, I started looking for yarn to use for my socks and or for the grown-up pair of socks. And I'll actually probably keep these socks. And looking at my leftover yarns, I realized that I would really like to use this color. And this is exactly the same color that I used for the baby socks. And because I landed on this leftover bit, thinking it should be big enough to make 2 feet if I don't use it for the leg of the sock, I decided to also use the same colors that I used for the baby socks, except not quite as many colors. So I did not use the neon yellow and the blue that I used for the baby socks, but I used the white, orange, purple, and green. And as I did with one of the baby socks, I use white always for the first round. But then for the other rounds, I changed the order of the colors. So every square has all the 3 colors, but always in a different order. And there are exactly 6 different ways of arranging 3 colors. And so I used all 6 possibilities to crochet both the cuffs or the legs for my socks. And that worked up a lot faster than I thought. So if you look at them, there's always a difference. These are the same colors. They both have orange on the outside, but then the green and purple are swapped. The same here and the same here. And every sock has each of the colors on the outside and each of the colors on the inside and each of the colors in the middle. I really like playing around with these combinations, and I was quite happy to have those cuffs or whatever finished quickly. And the idea now is to pick up stitches from around those granny squares and then start knitting and using the yarn from the inside and the outside, because I'm not quite sure if this will be enough yarn. And at first my idea was, as with the baby socks, to only knit a few rounds and then go straight into the foot of the sock, into the heel. But as usual with crochet, this is not very elastic. So to get it over my heel, I have to pull it quite a bit, but it does fit over the heel. But then it's fairly loose around my ankle. So if I went straight into the heel, it would be rather loose. So now I'm thinking to probably add a bit of ribbing, the way I did with my original granny square socks, and then start the heel. But that means I need more of the main color. So now I'm thinking I might do a solid color heel and maybe toes. So maybe I'll just do the colorful toes when I run out of yarn. But that's the reason I want to knit both the socks at the same time, so that I will have the same amount of main color in both socks. And then I can see if I want to either... I mean, I have 3 colors here with orange, green, and purple. I could do different heels if I wanted, or different toes, or maybe different heels and the same toe. I don't know, so many options. I just see what I feel like doing once I've started knitting the socks and I've done the ribbing. Yeah, so that's everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!